Our next speaker is Mike Sullivan. Mike is a division engineer with the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. He's been with the district for 23 years and holds a bachelor's degree in petroleum and mechanical engineering with the University of Cal Berkeley, and also has a degree in civil engineering with civil and environmental engineering at Loyola Marymount University. You've been with the district that many years. You're old. You're getting old, Mike. The other interesting thing is that Mike teaches part-time at Loyola Marymount. Mike?
Thanks, Tony. I was going to ask you to skip the whole thing because it does remind me how old I am. Okay, 2 minutes already. Okay. All right, I was here to just tell you a little bit about the sanitation districts for those that aren't familiar. What's moving ahead? Okay. So the sanitation districts, kind of our role, obviously the tie-in here is recycled water, and we'll cover a little bit more about that towards the end. We were established in 1923 basically to help manage the wastewater and solid waste needs for the people in Los Angeles County. So we're comprised of 23 independent special districts that cover about 815 square miles and 78 different cities and a population of over 5 million people. So we're a pretty big organization. We have about 18 or 1900 employees operating a number of different facilities and about 250 engineers. To kind of give you a grasp of our operation. But here we're here to talk about recycled water, of course, but a little bit about our agency first. So these are a map showing our solid waste facilities. So we operate 3 different landfills. Those are the blue circles. We have some closed landfills that we monitor, 3 materials recovery facilities, and this is kind of key with the theme of our agency to reuse, recycle, and repurpose everything that we can, and a couple of waste to energy facilities. So we have up in the left-hand corner there is Pointy Hills, which is the largest landfill in the nation. And next to that on the right is our newest material recovery facility, which is over 5 acres and overall at our different facilities, we recycle everything we can. Green waste, appliances, concrete, wood waste, tires, everything we can pull out of the waste stream we do. And again, we have 3 different materials recovery facilities where we're doing that sort of thing. Trying to go quickly here, but the Pointy Hills landfill is going to close fairly shortly, so we're actually kind of moving ahead with siting and developing a remote landfill stations that we actually would haul the material out by train, which again, greater emphasis on recycling and recovering as much as we can before we have to haul that material about 200 miles one way down to Imperial County. We also produce a lot of energy, so at our landfill operations, the organics in the landfill that do get deposited break down. We actually have huge fans that actually sort of pull a vacuum on the whole landfill, and we collect all of that gas and make power with it. At our wastewater facilities, we digest the organics that are in the waste stream, make power with that, and then we have the 2 waste energy facilities. So we're talking about 120 megawatts of power. So our facilities, I don't know if you can kind of see it up on the right here, we only use about 30 megawatts of power. So we're not kind of just off the grid. We're starting to help power the grid. So, and that's kind of something that we try to maximize wherever we can. So that 90 megawatts of power that we're putting into the grid is enough to power almost 100,000 homes. So to kind of get to the point here, though, this is our wastewater facilities map. You can kind of see the blue circles here are our water treatment plants, and the yellow lines are our main trunk lines. So we've got treatment plants. We have one up in La Cañada that's about 200,000 gallons a day, all the way up to the JWPCP, which is down there in Carson, is a 350 million gallon a day plant. So we kind of have a wide range of plants, with the JWPCP being our main ocean disposal facility for all the water that we're not using upstream, and that's the blue circles there are water reclamation plants we developed upstream to try to reclaim water so that we can use it in the areas kind of before it all flows downhill and you'd have to pump it all back up again. So our overall system capacity is about 650 million gallons a day. We're only treating about 425 million gallons a day right now. There's 1,400 miles of sewers and 52 pumping plants that we also operate. So the recycled water portion of that is there's 160 million gallons a day of water that we're treating to reuse levels, so that could be reused. We're actually reusing about half of that, which is still pretty good, 80 million gallons a day. So how do we actually do that? The kind of a simplified graphic of a wastewater system coming from, and we have a big mix of, it's not just homes, but industry and commercial businesses. You know, it's probably closer to a third of each. So it's not kind of all coming from one type of source. At the treatment plant, there's sort of preliminary treatment, which is kind of a screening process. Primary treatment is kind of a gravity-driven process. Secondary treatment is a biological process where we actually develop biological communities that will consume the organics so that we can then sort of settle those out in the secondary treatment clarifiers. It's a little bit out of order, actually. You'd have the filtration would come after secondary treatment. Filtration being huge beds of media like sand or carbon or something along those lines that further clean up the water, and then followed by a disinfection process where you've essentially almost got water that's drinking water quality at that point. But at that point then it's available for reuse, and so what do we do with that water? In the way of reuse, we have, and this is kind of just some shots of where we have the uses in our system: parks and city medians and a lot of public areas, agriculture. This is kind of in the, I didn't mention it specifically in our overall facility slide, but we have all of those plants that are connected by the trunk lines kind of operating as one system, but we have smaller systems in Santa Clarita where we have 2 plants, and up in the Antelope Valley we have 2 kind of standalone facilities. So agriculture is still, there's still a fair amount up there in close proximity, so we use some of the recycled water for agriculture in the Antelope Valley. There's a lot of industrial processes where you don't want to use potable water, a carpet dyeing facility, cooling towers, things like that. Dust control in a lot of construction areas, golf course irrigation. I think there's about 30 or 40 golf courses that we supply water to. And then kind of the big one is groundwater recharge. So this is an aerial shot of groundwater recharge basins. And so question kind of being if the, let's see, essentially though, I shouldn't forget, in the groundwater recharge operation, it's kind of been described, but the water moves down through hundreds of feet of rock and is further polished, and then basically mixes with the drinking water supply. So this is kind of our history of wastewater treatment and then recycled water. You can kind of see developing back in the 20s when we started treating water, and then in the 60s and 70s when the water reclamation plants came online. That's that darker blue area that's actually water that is beneficially reused. And then the lighter blue area above that is the water that's treated to recycled water levels, but currently isn't yet beneficially reused. And it's hard to use it all the time, because as opposed to facilities where there's a lot of storage reservoirs, it's a daily operation. Everything is kind of moving through the plant on a daily basis. So if there's a need for it that day, at that time of day, then you can use it. And if not, then it kind of moves down through the river system. That's most of what's going down to San Gabriel. That's us, Chris, so they can't blame you for that. But you can kind of see the overall amounts of that's actually treated to reuse, and you kind of see where we currently are. We're almost about a third of the water that we process is treated to that level. So this gives you an idea just the number of sites that we're talking about. Going back into the in the 60s when we started out, you can see those almost exponential growth up to where we currently are, which is over 700 sites. So why aren't we using more of the water? If you look at the how much water is actually used, this is if for all the water that is beneficially reused, where does it go? So you can kind of see for groundwater recharge, we have 2 sites, but it's almost half of the water, because you can kind of use that, and Department of Public Works is able to move the water and get it into the basins and capture a great deal of it, whereas we've got in landscaping, you know, there's 642 sites, but it's less than 20% of the water. So landscaping, you're watering maybe once a day, maybe twice a day, but so it's kind of just the volume of use isn't quite there. This is a picture of the San Gabriel Valley. You can kind of see the 57 freeway on the right, the 605. Just to kind of orient you, those are our treatment facilities. There are the circles with the black dots, so that's Whittier and Arrows all the way to the left. That's the oldest water reclamation plant. San Jose Creek right at the junction of the 60 and the 605, and then the Pomona WRP all the way out here on the right. And then you can kind of see coming out from that these networks of piping arrangements. So this purple pipe that's put in to use the recycled water for as Tony mentioned, direct reuse. Direct reuse means something like irrigation or industry or something like that, not for groundwater recharge. So there is kind of limitations on how much you can do. It's much cheaper the closer into the treatment plant you are. You don't have as much pipe to put in to reach users. Kind of the farther out you want to get, then it kind of becomes more expensive. But there is kind of an intricate network, and you can see the dash lines there are proposed, eventual planned out areas where recycled water piping could be put in. Just to note, all the way out here coming from the Pomona WRP Benelli Park, which is adjacent to the Fairplex complex here, is irrigated with recycled water. So why not more groundwater recharge? Well, it is a good way to go about it. We've certainly been looking at it for years with Public Works and Water Master and Upper District and San Gabriel, some kind of a groundwater recharge project in the San Gabriel Valley. This is kind of out at the 605 and the 210 where the spreading grounds are. There's a lot of room. You can't just recharge anywhere. You have to have a big enough area that hasn't been developed. You have to have the right geology below it. You have to have an aquifer that's of good enough quality below that. So there's not too many places you can go, and this is obviously a very good location for that. So we've been working with them, and we'll continue to do so. We're sort of talking with regulators at this point. So that's the wrap-up sign. So hopefully by the next forum, we'll be able to come back with some good news about the progress we've made along those lines. Thank you.